first contingent of Kenyan police officers are in the crisis-hit Caribbean nation of Haiti, amid opposition from their countrymen who have tagged them as being brutal. Can they end Haiti's gang crisis? West African Regional Bloc ECOWAS sounds the alarm of being underfunded, forcing the organization to seek $2.6 billion annually for a strong security force to combat terrorism in the region. And meet Ma Kolma Bangura, who is hoping to defy the odds and compete in judo at the Olympics for Guinea. Watch World of Africa at these times on WION.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Janna.
And I'm Raisha Sehgal. On World DNA, the UK went to polls on July 4th, and all exit polls now suggest that the country is on the brink of a major political shift. As for predictions, Keir Starmer's Labour Party is heavily favoured to win a historic mandate, and the Conservatives, led by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, are going to face their worst defeat in 14 long years, making Sunak the first sitting Prime Minister to lose his seat in a general election. Well, the question being, what do the exit polls suggest? We'll give you a complete breakdown of what to expect on the show today.
Also, on World DNA, on the final day of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Astana, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar held bilateral talks with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi, where the two agreed to step up talks to resolve a long-standing border dispute which has stalled relations between New Delhi and Beijing. We'll bring you the latest on that as well. Let's get you started with the headlines. This is World DNA.
Britain's main opposition Labour Party is set for a landslide win. Exit polls suggest Labour to win 410 seats in the 650-seat House of Commons, with the Tories managing only 131, a record low.
Brexit figurehead Nigel Farage claims kick-starting a revolt against the establishment, quote-unquote, after exit polls indicate his party securing an unprecedented electoral breakthrough. Exit polls predict 13 seats for Reform UK.
Iranians vote today in the second round of a closely fought presidential election. Friday's vote will be a tight race between reformist lawmaker Masoud Pezeshkian and the former Revolutionary Guards member Saeed Jalili.
Israeli intelligence chief David Bardia is headed to Doha for talks on a truce and hostage release deal with Hamas as Netanyahu discusses new Hamas proposals.
Russian President Vladimir Putin says he took seriously U.S. presidential contestant Donald Trump's remarks that he could bring about a quick end to the fighting in Ukraine.
US President Joe Biden vows to keep fighting despite calls for him to bow out of the 2024 election race. At an Independence Day celebration at the White House, Biden says he is not going anywhere.
You got me, man. I'm not going anywhere. All right. All right, I'll come back out when they open the gate, okay?
Tourist resorts in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula brace for a hit from Hurricane Beryl, which is still packing ferocious winds after slamming Jamaica and the Cayman Islands.
Seven-time champion Novak Djokovic survives a scare against British wildcard Jacob Fernley at Wimbledon, while women's top seed Iga Swiatek has no trouble reaching the third round.
Counting of votes is underway across the United Kingdom, with results declared in 73 of the 650 constituencies.
Now, of them, Labour has won in 66, Conservative and Liberal Democrats in 3 each, and Reform UK in 1. UK stands on the brink of a significant political shift, with exit polls heavily favouring Keir Starmer's Labour Party to win a historic mandate.
The poll conducted by Ipsos indicates that Labour is on track to win 410 seats. The Conservatives are predicted to take 131 seats, which would make them the official opposition. And the Liberal Democrats are forecast to come third with a win on 61 seats. The Reform UK is to far exceed the expectations with 13 seats, according to the exit poll.
Now, after the release of the exit poll, people in London were optimistic but cautious about the future of the UK.
I mean, no surprises, really. I think coming into this, I know everyone was kind of expecting some kind of Labour victory. The extent to which we didn't really know kind of going into the election. I mean, personally, I live in a rather swing seat, so I'm interested to see how things play out for me locally. But I mean, at a national level, I don't see any kind of surprises in the overall outcome.
I think I'm really excited and optimistic about what the exit polls are showing. I think it's time for a new future, and that's going to be good for this country.
Labour's Keir Starmer thanked everyone who campaigned for the party in the election. He also had a special word of gratitude for those who voted and put their trust in what he called the changed Labour Party.
Sunak also thanked the hundreds of Conservative candidates, thousands of volunteers and millions of voters for their hard work, support and vote.
And well, for more on this, we're now being joined by Andrew Whitehead, who is a senior journalist, historian and author. He's joining us live from London. Welcome to World DNA, Mr. Whitehead. Now, Labour had fashioned its campaign around change, and it looks like change has come after 14 long years. What does a Labour win mean for the UK, and what kind of changes can we now expect?
Well, you're right, there is going to be a change. We now have, as you say, the results from about 70 constituencies, and that's sufficient to know that the exit poll is accurate and Labour has won a landslide victory. I expect in the next few hours that Rishi Sunak will resign as Prime Minister, and the Labour leader Keir Starmer will be asked by King Charles to form a new government. And Labour, as you say, has been campaigning for change. I think the changes will be fairly modest. Under Keir Starmer, the Labour Party is not really ideological. It's more pragmatic. Keir Starmer has said he will spend more money on the health service. He'll build many more homes because there is a housing crisis. And I think he will also stop Rishi Sunak's plans to send asylum seekers to Rwanda in Central Africa. But I think on many issues, it will simply be what I think Labour would see as a more competent government rather than a big change of direction. And certainly on foreign policy, I don't expect any big changes.
All right. Mr. Whitehead, also wanted to get your thoughts on this. Who do you think would get some of the key roles in the Labour government, as we're nearly sure now that there will be Keir Starmer in the helm of affairs? How do you feel those key roles are going to be defined?
Well, we'll know in the next few hours, but I certainly think that his key right-hand person, Rachel Reeves, will be the new Chancellor of the Exchequer. That basically is the Finance Minister. And that, by the way, will be the first woman ever to hold that role. It's probable, but a little bit less certain, that David Lammy will be the new Foreign Secretary. He is a black North London Labour Member of Parliament. And I suspect many of the people who've had shadow positions as part of Keir Starmer's front bench team will get promoted to the cabinet role that they have been shadowing. But it's up to the Labour Party leader. He may decide to make a few changes, and we'll only know that in the course of the day.
Mr. Whitehead, do you think that much of the damage to Sunak's Conservative Party is being done by the Reform Party, which is slated to secure some 13 seats, which ends up being a beneficiary of the Labour Party?
Yes, there's a number of things which have really made it very difficult for the Conservative Party. They've been in power for 14 years, so they are, I think, a little bit tired and exhausted. Parties do tend to run out of energy and new ideas after such a long period in power. The party's also been very acutely divided, and that's been a real problem for Rishi Sunak, because he hasn't managed to quell those divisions, and he's always been struggling to assert his own authority within the party as well as within the government. But he also has had the huge difficulty of fighting an election battle on two fronts. On the left, trying to see off his main challenger, the Labour Party, but on the right, trying to make sure that Reform UK, a right-wing, anti-immigrant, anti-immigration party, isn't siphoning off too many Conservative votes. And it looks as if Reform UK has actually taken perhaps as much as 15% of the overall vote. They probably won't get many Reform UK members of Parliament, but they will have deprived a lot of Conservatives of their seats. So they will indirectly have helped Labour form a government with a landslide majority.
All right, Mr. Whitehead, thank you so much for sharing all your insights. Of course, you don't see much change in foreign policy, but you have weighed in on the exit polls. But the final results, the exit polls seem to be reflecting exactly what was expected earlier. Thank you so much for all your insights. That was Andrew Whitehead joining us from London.
Well, moving on to other global news, Shivan, as doubts over US President Joe Biden's age continue to make rounds, now the 81-year-old leader has said that, and I'm quoting him here, not going anywhere. He said that while addressing military families at an Independence Day event on Thursday. Take a listen.
You got me, man. I'm not going anywhere. All right.
This comes as the White House staff is being blamed for shielding the president and keeping him away from the media. Reports suggest that the staff made efforts to avoid Biden's verbal missteps by cutting out press conferences and keeping media interviews to a minimum.
To begin with, Biden started off his presidency on a strong note with frequent meetings with the members of Congress in his first year. But by the third year, these meetings came down by as much as 2/3. Public appearances were controlled, with the president speaking predominantly from an auto cue. In all, the 81-year-old Biden had fewer presidential news conferences than any U.S. president since Ronald Reagan.
The president has also been giving a miss to the traditional pre-Super Bowl television interview for the past 2 years. And with these, Biden's presidential candidacy has been left in jeopardy. The flaws in the approach came out with the full force of a public revelation last week's televised debate with Donald Trump made. Democrats are now accusing the White House staff of allowing the truth to burst into the open in such a manner as to increase the chance of a second Trump presidency. And that is also why they are unable to shrug off Biden's performance as a one-off misstep.
Fresh reports state that Biden verbal and behavioral lapses have only become more frequent in recent months. From all accounts, Biden's muddled debate appearance was not one of a kind, but rather a norm in recent times.
I don't walk as easy as I used
Now,
to.
Democrats who are looking to replace Biden have also accused the White House and Biden's handlers of trying to hide the president's shortcomings. There are many instances where President Biden misspoke or appeared confused. Just last month, he seemed to have momentarily forgotten the name of his Homeland Security Secretary, Alejandro Mayorkas, at a gala White House event.
Well, in May, the president tried to introduce a U.S. citizen currently being held hostage in Gaza as a guest at an event.
Now, at two fundraisers in February, he described meeting the former German Chancellor Helmut Kohl at the G7 summit in 2021 and François Mitterrand, the former French president. Both these leaders died years long before the summit.
Not only this, the president also referred to Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the Egyptian president, as the president of Mexico. The long list of aging missteps do little to lessen the panic that Democrats are now facing with his candidacy, as we are just 5 months away from U.S. elections.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has sent his spy chief David Barnea to Doha for talks with mediators on a Gaza war ceasefire.
And all this amid renewed optimism over a possible breakthrough. Netanyahu called a meeting of his security cabinet on Thursday to discuss new Hamas proposals sent through Qatari and Egyptian mediators.
Now, the Mossad chief, Barnea, is traveling with a delegation to Qatar in continuation of talks on ceasefire and hostage deal. According to reports, he will meet with the Qatari Prime Minister for discussions aiming to bring the parties closer to a deal.
U.S. President Joe Biden welcomed Netanyahu's decision to send a delegation to Doha in a telephonic conversation with the Israeli Prime Minister.
According to reports, the U.S. believes fresh Hamas proposal moves the process forward and may provide the basis for closing the deal, but it does not mean an agreement is likely in the coming days. Hamas on Wednesday has sent new ideas for a potential deal, which Netanyahu's office said the government is evaluating. Biden announced a pathway to a truce deal in May, which he said had been proposed by Israel. This included a 6-week truce to allow for talks, the release of hostages, and eventually a program to rebuild devastated Gaza.
The winds of war are shifting in Ukraine and is now bringing a chilling concern for the fate of the incoming F-16 fighter jets.
Russia's brutal campaign to cripple Ukrainian air power has resulted in a series of devastating strikes on air bases, which are the potential future homes for these American F-16s. This fierce onslaught has thrown up a critical question. Can Ukraine shield these advanced jets from the Russian aggression? The Russian Ministry of Defense recent claim of destroying 5 Su-27 fighters and damaging 2 others in precision strikes on Ukrainian military airports sends a chilling message.
The aggressive targeting of air assets and infrastructure is likely a prelude to a broader strategy, one that is aimed at neutralizing Ukraine's improved air capabilities, with F-16s squarely in Moscow's crosshairs.
These attacks underscore the formidable obstacles Kiev faces in its attempt to rejuvenate its depleted air force by inducting the US-designed F-16s. The first of these fighter jets are expected to arrive this month. The outgoing Dutch government says the Netherlands will soon supply Ukraine with the first of 24 promised F-16 fighter jets. The necessary permits to deliver the jets to Ukraine were granted after months of coalition building following an election last year. However, Netherlands declined to specify just how many planes will be delivered in the first batch and when they will arrive in Ukraine.
Well, Ukraine hopes that the F-16s will strengthen its defenses against the ongoing Russian onslaught along the front lines. These lines are currently subjected to devastating Russian glide bomb attacks that the F-16s could potentially disrupt and thwart.
In addition to the aerial threats, Ukraine's ground situation is increasingly precarious. Ukrainian military sources report their troops have withdrawn from parts of Chasiv in the eastern Donetsk region. This move follows Russia's claim that its forces had secured a district within the strategic town.
The enemy has a big advantage in the air. If we could intercept at least half of what they have, supercams, ordnance, it would have been much harder for the enemy. Much harder. But since our airspace is not protected, there's nothing we can do.
Chasiv Yar holds significant tactical significance as it sits on elevated terrain. Should Russian forces fully capture the town, it could serve as a crucial staging ground for further advances towards key Ukrainian cities like Kramatorsk and Sloviansk.
The intensified focus on Ukrainian air bases, combined with ground losses like those in Chasiv Yar, reflect the mounting challenges Kiev faces. The anticipated arrival of F-16s, while offering a potential boost, also comes with significant risks as Russia remains determined to neutralize these assets. Tourist resorts in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula are getting ready for a hit from Hurricane Beryl,
which is still packing ferocious winds after slamming Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. Beryl has now re-strengthened to major Category 3 off Mexico coast.
It is headed for a landfall on the Yucatan Peninsula. The storm has already left a trail of destruction behind across the Caribbean and the coast of Venezuela, killing at least 7 people.
And Beryl is again quickly moving west-northwestward. You can see the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula here. The conditions are going to rapidly deteriorate along the east coast of the Yucatan Peninsula this evening and overnight, with the center expected to make landfall early Friday morning along the east coast of the Yucatan.
In Mexico, schools in the area bracing for a hit were suspended and shelters were set up for locals and tourists. Now, Beryl is soon to hit the Yucatan Peninsula, emerging from the Gulf of Mexico, and then arrive in the northern state of Tamaulipas, which borders the U.S.
Hurricane is expected to weaken to a tropical storm over land, but we are forecasting some re-strengthening here over the Gulf of Mexico as Beryl turns more northwestward and approaches the coast of northeastern Mexico and South Texas. We are forecasting it to be at or near hurricane strength by Monday morning and expected to make landfall somewhere in that vicinity. It's a little too early to get very specific with where we expect those worst hazards.
Hundreds of tourists were evacuated from hotels along Mexico's coastline, while some were still attempting to take buses out of the impact zone. The Mexican army has deployed some 8,000 troops in Tulum and announced that it has food supplies and some 34,000 litres of purified water to distribute to the population.
The hurricane has already caused flash floods and mudslides in the Cayman Islands after hours of heavy rain and strong wind. The streets of Grand Cayman were littered with tree branches and other debris, and big waves still washed over the marina. But people stayed safe at home, waiting for the authorities all clear before assessing the damage. Cleaning crew with machinery went out when the rain stopped to clear the roads.
In Jamaica, local media reported that more than 400,000 people have been left without power. Hurricane Beryl toppled down trees, jumbled fishing boats in Barbados, and damaged or destroyed 95% of homes on a pair of islands in St. Vincent and Grenadines before rumbling past the Cayman Islands. Cleanup crews are diligently clearing up roads full of debris and fallen trees in response to the storm's aftermath. No major damage to houses or other structures has been reported.
And now shifting our focus to Pakistan, the country is making headlines with a bold move to strengthen its tax revenue, but this again is not without any kind of controversy.
Now, the Tax Authority of Pakistan Federal Board of Revenue has blocked around 210,000 SIM cards of users who haven't filed their tax returns. Till now, around 5.2 million people have filed their taxes out of 240 million people. The Federal Board of Revenue ordered the Pakistani telecom services to cut off these SIM cards back in April, and since then 62,000 cards have been restored after the payment was made. Pakistan has more than 192 million cell phone subscribers and 4 telecommunications service providers. Pakistanis must register a SIM card with their national identity number, which is often used for multiple connections.
However, Pakistani citizens are not happy with the way the tax authority handled the situation. Even the telecom service companies are extremely worried and are voicing concerns, calling the move impractical and potentially harmful for foreign investment.
Analysts say it's a heavy-handed situation. Digital rights activists are saying that these measures could disrupt essential services like emergencies and education. The South Asian nation is finding it hard to raise its very low income because much of its economy is not officially recorded. The government has been asking for more money from the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, to help manage its finances better. However, the IMF says Islamabad needs to do more to raise money from its sources.
Well, it's now time for a quick short break, but don't go anywhere. On the other side of World DNA, we'll get your story from India, where in the south Indian state of Kerala, a rare deadly amoeba with no recognized treatment has claimed the lives of 3 children.
Japan has deployed humanoid robots for railway maintenance. The remote-controlled robot can help fill worker shortages in Tokyo. We are going to be bringing you the complete details on that as well. This and a lot more on the other side of the break. Come right back. This is World DNA.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
This week on the West Asia Post, Hezbollah lays one condition to back down from fighting Israeli forces, a ceasefire in Gaza. The Lebanese group launches an unprecedented drone attack on Israeli military post. An Israeli Army Reserve general warns that Israeli forces are not winning the war with Hamas. Settler violence in the occupied West Bank is spiraling. Also on the show, we will tell you more about the riots in Turkey and protests across the Syria-Turkey border.
Watch the West Asia Post with me, Radi Francis, this Friday at these times, only on WION. World is One.
This week on the West Asia Post, Hezbollah lays one condition to back down from fighting Israeli forces, a ceasefire in Gaza. The Lebanese group launches an unprecedented drone attack on Israeli military post. An Israeli Army Reserve general warns that Israeli forces are not winning the war with Hamas. Settler violence in the occupied West Bank is spiraling. Also on the show, we will tell you more about the riots in Turkey and protests across the Syria-Turkey border.
Watch the West Asia Post with me, Radi Francis, only on WION. World is One.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching World DNA with Raisha and me, Shivan. Let's get you started with the headlines we're tracking for you at this hour.
Britain's main opposition, Labour Party, is set for a landslide win. Exit polls suggest Labour to win 410 seats in the 650-seat House of Commons, with the Tories managing only 131, a record low.
In the highest profile upset for Conservatives, Defence Secretary Grant Shapps loses his seat to Labour. Justice Secretary Alex Chalk loses to Lib Dems.
Brexit figurehead Nigel Farage claims kickstarting a revolt against the establishment after exit polls indicate his party securing an unprecedented electoral breakthrough. Exit polls predict 13 seats for Reform UK.
Iranians vote today in the second round of a closely fought presidential election. Friday's vote will be a tight race between reformist lawmaker Masoud Pezeshkian and the former Revolutionary Guards member Saeed Jalili.
Israeli intelligence chief David Barnea is headed to Doha for talks in a truce and hostage release deal with Hamas, as Netanyahu discusses new Hamas proposals.
Russian President Vladimir Putin says he took US presidential candidate Donald Trump's remarks seriously, that he could bring about a quick end to the fighting in Ukraine.
You got me, man. I'm not going anywhere. All right. All right, I'll come back out when they open the gate, okay? Thank you, thank you, thank you.
US President Joe Biden vows to keep fighting despite calls for him to bow out of the 2024 election race. At an Independence Day celebration at the White House, Biden says he's not going anywhere.
Tourist resorts in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula brace for a hit from Hurricane Beryl, which is still packing ferocious winds after slamming Jamaica and the Cayman Islands.
Seven-time champion Novak Djokovic survives his scare against British wildcard Jacob Fernley at Wimbledon, while women's top seed Iga Swiatek has no trouble reaching the third round.
On the final day of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Astana, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar held bilateral talks with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi,
where both the leaders agreed to step up talks to resolve a long-standing border dispute which has stalled ties between New Delhi and Beijing.
Now, Jaishankar emphasized on accelerating efforts to achieve complete disengagement from the remaining contentious areas and restore peace and tranquility along the border, further stressing on how respecting the line of actual control and maintaining peace in the border area should be a priority for both nations. The Indian Foreign Minister said that the three principles of mutual respect, mutual sensitivity and mutual interest will guide the bilateral ties.
The Chinese Foreign Minister said that Beijing and New Delhi should properly handle and control the border situation and should actively resume normal exchanges with each other. Now, both Jaishankar and Wang Yi concluded the meeting by announcing the working mechanism on consultation and coordination on India-China border affairs. That committee will convene an early meeting to expedite the resolution of the remaining issues.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin, who attended the SCO summit in Astana, said that he took former US President Donald Trump's comments on how he could end the war in Ukraine seriously. During the presidential debate last week, Trump had said that if elected, he would end the war in Ukraine.
You know, the fact that Mr. Trump, as a presidential candidate, is saying that he is ready and wants to stop the war in Ukraine, we take this quite seriously.
Apart from this, the Russian president also said that the Taliban, which is a banned group in Russia, are Moscow's allies in fighting terrorism because they are in control of Afghanistan. And this comes after Putin last month called for Moscow to build up ties with the Taliban.
And for more on this, we were earlier joined by our Pakistan Bureau Chief Anas Malik, who sent us this report. Listen to this.
The SCO Heads of States meeting here in Astana has concluded with the Astana Declaration focusing on security and economic connectivity and cooperation. That being said, the Kremlin calls it a tectonic shift given in its foreign policy. Russia's key ally, Belarus, has now been made a full member of the grouping. Today at the SCO Plus, it was the first that was held. That gives a window to other countries on who would aspire to become full members of the SCO. That also signals on the grouping's part that they are not limited by borders or by common languages. Anas Malik in Astana, Kazakhstan for WION. World is One.
In the South Indian state of Kerala, a rare deadly amoeba has claimed the lives of 3 children and the deadly medical condition has no recognized treatment.
More concerning is the fact that it is not even possible to easily diagnose it. WION's principal correspondent Siddharth MP tells us more about the killer amoeba in Kerala. Take a look at this report. 3 victims in 3 months, all of them school-going children. Each had displayed common symptoms: headache, fever, vomiting, loss of appetite, loss of sense of taste, and all of a sudden, while undergoing treatment, the condition of the children deteriorated. They went into a coma and soon passed away. Scary and tragic as it sounds, the waterborne mystery illness claimed the 3 lives in May, June and July this year. Naegleria fowleri is an amoeba, a single-celled organism. It survives in warm climate, in freshwater lakes, rivers and hot springs. The amoeba can even be found in swimming pools, tap water or contaminated water. In fact, this deadly amoeba could be lurking anywhere around us. When the amoeba ends up in the human body, it causes a severe inflammation. Eventually, it destroys the brain tissue. In medical terminology, the infection is known as primary amoebic meningoencephalitis or PAM. There are several species of Naegleria amoeba, but only the fowlery species can cause harm. The amoeba was first identified in Australia, but it is believed to have evolved in the US. In most cases, the amoeba is harmless, but in rare cases, it can cause harm and death. Ingesting the organism orally doesn't pose problems, but the danger is when the contaminated water enters the body through the nose. The brain-eating amoeba triggers common symptoms of illness within 2 days or 2 weeks of entering the human body. Most people succumb within a week. Worse, the symptoms are too common to be specifically identified as brain-eating amoeba. Tragedy can strike even before the doctors understand the true condition of the patient. The amoeba doesn't literally eat the human brain, but the chemicals it releases can dissolve the protein in the human brain tissue.
The major threat posed by the brain-eating amoeba is the fact that it's found in all freshwater bodies in tropics, be it the lakes, ponds or rivers. What we're given to understand is that all 3 children who succumbed in Kerala at some point in time had played in any of these freshwater bodies. They contracted the infection from the freshwater bodies after this particular amoeba entered their nasal passage. There were several others with them, kids and adults who played in those water bodies, but they did not get it, which means it's directly transmitted from water to the nasal passage. There is no case of human-to-human transmission. But the major challenge is that from getting infected to succumbing, there's only a gap of 2 weeks, and it takes a lot of time to identify this disease and offer specific treatment. In fact, there is also no specific treatment or one drug that can offer a miracle cure against this particular condition known as PAM. Now the Kerala government is devising a special strategy and guidelines to deal with such possible cases in future. From Chennai, Siddharth MP, WION, World is One.
A new survey revealing a surprising difference in how younger and older wealthy Americans invest their money. The study by Bank of America Private shows a clear shift towards alternative investments among younger, high net worth individuals. Take a look at this next report for more.
A new study by Bank of America Private Bank reveals a significant generational divide in how wealthy Americans invest their money. The survey focused on high net worth individuals with over $3 million in investable assets, divided into 2 groups, those aged to 21 to 43 and 44 and older. The findings highlight a clear shift among younger investors. Compared to their older counterparts, they allocate a significantly lower percentage of their portfolios to traditional stocks and bonds. This younger generation is drawn to alternative investments, with 93% planning to increase their allocation in this area. This trend is further fueled by a growing interest in cryptocurrencies. Nearly half of the young investors own crypto, and many view it as a top opportunity for growth, placing it second only to real estate. This enthusiasm contrasts with older investors who remain largely invested in traditional asset classes. The survey suggests that recent market experiences may be shaping these investment preferences. Younger investors have entered the market during a period of significant volatility, witnessing 2 major crashes and a rising correlation between stocks and bonds. This has led to a skepticism of traditional investment strategies delivering above-average returns. In contrast, older investors have likely experienced more stable market conditions and may hold a greater belief in the long-term potential of stocks and bonds. The focus on alternative assets by younger investors suggests a long-term perspective on their wealth management. Many alternative investments, such as private equity or hedge funds, tend to be less liquid than traditional stocks and bonds. This indicates a willingness among younger investors to potentially sacrifice short-term liquidity for the chance of higher returns in the future. Business Bureau, WION, World is One.
Let's now take a look at all the news from the world of technology. Chinese Premier Li Shang has called for global cooperation and a more open mindset in artificial intelligence as a rivalry between Beijing and Washington heats up in the nascent tech field. China has raced to catch up with US tech companies in AI in particular. The US and other countries have reacted with alarm to Chinese technology that they claim can be used for espionage operations. Chinese tech companies are expected to unveil multiple new AI products at the multi-day World AI Conference in Shanghai.
The next time you visit Japan, you might witness robots working at a railway station. Japan has deployed humanoid robots for railway maintenance. The remote-controlled robot can carry objects as heavy as 40 kgs. Developers believe the robot will help fill worker shortages as well as reduce accidents such as workers falling from high places or suffering electric shocks. Currently, the robot's primary task will focus on trimming tree branches along rails and painting metal frames that hold cables above the train.
The Indian government has been promoting Unified Payments Interface or UPI for faster digital payments worldwide, and now UPI is available in the UAE. Indian travelers and NRIs in the UAE can make payments using UPI through QR codes at point-of-sale machines. The Government of India, the Reserve Bank of India and NPCI International Payments Limited have worked together to promote UPI globally. UPI is now officially accepted in Nepal, Sri Lanka, Mauritius, UAE, Singapore, France and Bhutan.